Articles of Federation. Chapter 4, Articles 9 through 22, the Federation Assembly. The Federation Assembly shall be open to all members of the Federation, shall hold discussions on any question pertaining to the safety and or welfare of member races within the Federation or of the Federation itself. Each member planet shall have one vote, and all proposals of the member planet or assembly will require 2/3 majority vote to be enacted. The assembly shall also require the Federation Secretariat to report to the assembly on matters of concern at periodic intervals. The assembly has the authority to make recommendations to the Federation Council when such recommendations advance interstellar cooperation and ensure the individual rights of Federation citizens. The Assembly is empowered to approve or reject the Federation's budget, shall decree the amount of financial responsibility for each member planet shall receive. Should such financial responsibilities not be met, the Assembly may, by a majority vote, act to suspend temporarily that member's rights to vote on matters before the Assembly. The Assembly shall meet at a specific intervals or as circumstances may require. This body is also empowered to authorize the formation of organizational bodies not previously established by a majority vote. So, what we got here is the formation, not just the formation, but the bylaws or the outline of what the Federation Assembly's responsibilities are and what their powers are to some degree. Now, this is a representative, the Federation's almost a republic. It is a representation of the people by elected people. Now, there's some subtleties in here because I've read in other portions of the book where it explains that in some aspects there are Federation members where it says one world, one vote, and that's not true because there's indication of several worlds that have nation states, if you will, on those worlds. So you actually be members of the Federation where the other half of the planet isn't, kind of thing, or there are two distinctly different government bodies being honored by the Federation as members. So there would be one vote per entity or one vote per government per se. But in this case, that's just kind of one of those minor detail things. That the Federation is open to all members and without any stipulations, and are allowed to have the discussions on any question, whether or not they have any say in it. So they can make the assembly itself of members representing the various governments that they do can influence a lot of the politics at the higher level of the Federation by showing that the majority is not happy with a given situation, or the majority wishes a certain situation to be addressed. Whether or not the Federation Council or the Secretariat actually acts upon that is another matter. We see that in a lot of our modern governments today. One of the powers that the Assembly has is that they control the purse strings of the Federation. And I've seen discussions and bits on YouTube and on other media sources over the decades about how the Federation's monetary system does or does not work. The fact that they imply that there somehow is a perfect socialist environment where no money is available is BS. That's just not plausible. Whether you call it the Federation credit or you call it a money at all, that's debatable. But the fact is that there is an economy, and the economy, whether it's based off of trade or mutual support or what have you, is a motivating engine. So it takes material resources to manufacture and support starships. You just don't get to replicate from nothing and have something. The material to the replicator has to come from somewhere. And not only does it have to come from somewhere, it has to be brought to the replicator. So now we need a method of transportation. And in some place, somewhere, somebody brought this material together and put it in such a form that it could be transported to the replicators to be used. So if we're using and there's a section in here where it talks about how the replicator system works. I've seen bits and pieces of it in the movies and TV series, just like most of you have. And as I've said, it doesn't just pull material things out of raw energy. There are actually material sources. The Calvin line did a better job of showing the inner workings of the Enterprise. And there's a section where, why does the Enterprise and any of the starships have cargo holds? because they need to stockpile certain amounts of supplies, and this not only includes things that can't be replicated or successfully replicated, but the material needed to use in the replicators. This is why in Voyager it becomes an issue where they need to ration out the use of replicators. That's to keep the vital material that they do have and see that it stretches as far as possible. And then it's not likely that they're going to find fresh sources. It's much easier to turn, let's say, a block of aluminum into something that can be fed into a replicator, and the replicator can materialize it as needed from this block of aluminum, than it is to take raw aluminum out of the ground and try to feed it into a replicator. It's never been addressed to my knowledge, but it's something to be brought up. So the Federation Assembly controls the purse strings of the Federation, which helps give them some power. It gives their recommendations bite. They don't necessarily create the law, but they can determine whether or not somebody can be a member of the Federation, and they can control how the resources of the Federation are applied as according to need, which is why they're allowed to approve or reject the budget. And the last bit is also important. It's through the Federation Assembly that other government entities are constructed, are envisioned. So the president can't just decide to create his version of a new government bureaucracy. The Federation Council cannot vote to create a new federal agency to do blah. That is the sole power of the Federation Assembly. So the council has to appeal to the Assembly. The Secretariat has to show the need for this entity and appeal to the Federation Assembly, and then you need a majority vote on making that assumption. It doesn't actually stipulate that, but that's the Federation Assembly.